Class on principles and practices of management. And in the previous session, we talked about controlling, of course, and we talked about the features or the characteristics of control in the management. And then we talked about the objectives or the need for having a control system, as well as the prerequisites of control system. And we concluded the session with the different steps in controlling process. So we saw some 4 steps pertaining to controlling process. Okay, so moving on today, we are moving on to a topic which is essentials of a good control system. What is required to ensure that the organization or the firm has good controlling, good planning. Now, every organization will require that the controlling function in the organization will go on as per the planning function. So there is, of course, no universal control system which will fit every organization, because there are multiple types of organizations, right? You have big organizations, small organizations, you have partnerships, and then you have sole proprietorships. Okay, so every organization will want a different type of a control system, and therefore we don't have any universal control system. So the environment and the requirements of different enterprises, because they're different, therefore the control systems also should be created based upon the type of the organization, the environment surrounding the organization, as well as the requirements of the organization to achieve the desired goal or to achieve the desired results of the firm. Now, every control system will have certain essential features. So we've listed some features here, as we can see in the slide. So let's look at the features one by one. Your first feature is feedback. Now, feedback is very important, whether it is in the form of planning, whether it is in the function, or when you're having in case of communicating also. You remember, feedback is a very important aspect or a very important function. And as such, we can say that feedback is the backbone of the control system. Feedback is something that is relevant or very important if we want to have a good control system. So feedback is nothing more but information which the managers use in order to organize or to correct the organization's actual performance. So the main purpose of feedback is nothing more than to adjust the future actions using previous experiences. Okay, so once they have gone through the entire working of the organization, they will have to study, right? They'll have to study what had happened, what is the actual production, and what is the standard production. And using the feedback from the work that has been done, they can adjust the future actions for the organization. Okay, future actions of the organization, meaning to ensure that they always achieve the set goals. So managers will take measures which they're getting from feedbacks to implement various corrective actions in case there are deviations. And these measures generally, they will help to bridge the gap between the actual performance of the organization and the goals. Bridge the gap meaning if there are any differences, they'll try to correct these differences. So feedback, it may be either formal or informal. So formal feedback will be like your financial statements, anything that is written. Okay, formal feedback is anything that is given in the form of reports. So financial statements, statistics, reports, or any other written communication. And then you have your informal feedback. Informal feedback is when the managers just talk to the subordinates and ask them, hey, do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Okay, so any informal discussions, personal opinions that are being made, all of these are termed as your informal feedback. Okay, so remember, there are 2 kinds of feedback, formal and informal, and that feedback is the backbone of your control system. Okay, second point, control must be objective. Now, when we're talking about this, it is the second essential requirement of a good control system. Objective means there should be no bias. Okay, you should not be let's say, for example, you have to judge the work of 2 employees. Okay, one employee is your friend, another employee is just your regular employee. So you're giving more favoritism to your friend. Okay, even though your friend is not producing properly, yet you're still giving them the promotion, then in that situation it's said to be subjective. It's not objective. Okay, so there should when it comes to controlling, there should be no biasness. It must be completely objective. So a subjective criteria should never be the basis of evaluating the actual performances. All right, and then you have point number 3, prompt reporting of deviations. Now, in everything, time is very important. Okay, like for example, in case of a doctor also, if a patient comes on time, if a critical patient comes on time, they might be able to save the patient. But if a patient comes, when they're close to breathing the last breath, then there's a chance that a patient may die no matter what the doctor does. Okay, so similarly, in case of the controlling also, the moment you realize there are some problems, go and tell the managers immediately. So the element of the controlling system, it basically requires quick reporting of deviations as well as any other discrepancies. If there are any mistakes, immediately they should be reported to the higher-ups. Now, if some work is not going according to the plans, then the managers must take notice of this immediately. This is because if there is any delay as such in reporting problems or in taking corrective measures, it could lead to financial losses for a business. It could lead to very heavy financial losses, in fact, if they're not reported immediately, because one small problem could lead to a bigger problem. So the effort should be made to determine or to find out any deviations as soon or as early as possible. Otherwise, corrective measures will be delayed. And then the need to know at the earliest whether performance is satisfactory or not is a very important aspect or very important element when it comes to controlling. If it's not made immediately, if the problems are not reported immediately, then we're not able to correct them, and as such, it could lead to more losses. Okay, point number 4, control should be forward-looking. Now, planning is also forward-looking. Okay, we're planning for the future. Now, controlling is when you are studying the past in order to make corrections for the future. Okay, so controlling is always something where you study what has been done already, compare it, and see what we can do in case of the future to correct or to reach your financial goals. So control system will often suffer from defect of delay in reporting of deviations as well as taking corrective actions. So this could lead to financial losses. Therefore, the managers must try to ensure that their control systems are forward-looking. And if they're forward-looking, it means they will help to predict deviations. This problem may occur, that problem may occur. If this happens, these are the guidelines we should follow. If that happens, these are the guidelines or these are the steps we should follow. Okay, so controlling should always make plans in advance. Okay, they'll know exactly, not exactly because future is always uncertain, but they'll know that at some point of time, some problems may occur, and for that we should have some guidelines or we should have some kind of precautions or steps prepared in advance. Okay, and 5th point is flexible control. Now, when it comes to controlling, it should not be a rigid control structure. Rigid control structure means very tight, very strict, cannot be changed. Okay, it should be flexible in nature because a rigid control system will often make it the controlling, and in fact, it will make it ineffective, especially when it comes to unpredictable situations. Okay, for example, if you're saying we will have to do this no matter what. Now, if you're saying something like that, what about if another situation occurs? If that situation occurs, what are we going to do? Okay, so there's always that issue. So the controls which are devised for the present may not be applicable for the future, right? Because the future is always uncertain. Therefore, it should not be extremely rigid. The rigidity in the control will have to play with the system. It should be flexible and it should be open to all these different kinds of changes. And the managers also should be able to adapt the different control measures as per the requirements of any scenario that is available or that they have to carry forward with. Okay. And then we have point number 6, which states hierarchical suitability. Hierarchy means there is a top to bottom or a bottom to top approach. Okay, wherein top management, middle level management, lower level management. Okay, we follow that approach. Okay, so when it comes to the control system, they're saying that a good control system should be suitable for a hierarchical structure. Now, almost all business organizations will possess some kind of a management hierarchy, wherein you have managers at different positions and different levels, as you said, top level, middle level, bottom level, right? Now, since each manager will perform different controlling functions at his level, the system itself, the controlling system itself, must suit the organization's hierarchy. Okay, which means that every manager should have adequate powers for controlling certain things. If there are any mistakes made at the lower level manager should be able to control them. If there's anything made at the middle level, then the middle level manager should be able to control. Okay, so it should be suitable, it should be created in such a way that it's not meant just for the top level, but for any manager at any level of the organization. Okay, point number 7 is economical control. Now, every controlling system should be economical in nature, especially when it comes to its maintenance and its implementation. We cannot have a controlling system that is going to be very expensive because there are so many other costs involved. So let's try to reduce on the costs that we can. So the cost that you can control is your controlling system. So in other words, we should not have a controlling system wherein it is wherein the cost outweigh the benefits. Okay, wherein it's more expensive, but it doesn't give us enough returns. You should have a control system in which the benefits should outweigh the cost. In a sense, what you're receiving should be more than what you're giving out, what you're paying. So an organization must be able to afford it, and also it should be able to derive the best possible advantages for it. Optimum utilization. All right, and then point number 8, we have reflect the organization's needs. Now, any controlling system, in fact, any kind of system that is adopted in the organization should be depending upon the needs and requirements of the organization. So the control system also is not any different. Now, the controlling tools should be such which are suitable to the needs of the organization. Now, there are various different types of controlling techniques which we will be learning later in the future chapter, where like your budgets, statistical charts, and then you have PERT, CPM, and then you also have your decision tree analysis. Okay, different types of analysis are there, different types of techniques are there. But just because there are a lot of them doesn't mean they're suitable for everything. Okay, different organizations will have different types of suitabilities. Therefore, the best control system is that which is properly used in an organization and one which is able to give the organization its desired results. Okay, it doesn't matter what type they're choosing as long as it is suitable for them and as long as they're giving them these suitable or satisfactory results. So controls should reflect the needs of the organization. And then point number 9, we're having control must be simple to understand. Now, anything, if it's simple to understand, makes it a lot easier to accept, right? For example, if you're buying a phone, if you find a phone which has a simple user interface, something which has an operating software that you're already used to, you're more inclined to get the phone as opposed to a phone which has a very difficult, the user interface is difficult, the graphics also you may not be able to understand it. Okay, so as opposed to that, you'll be choosing the one which you're more comfortable with, right? So similarly, in case of controlling also, you should choose one which is simple to understand. So sophisticated policies can often make elements of control systems difficult to understand and implement. So therefore, a good control system is one that is always simple to comprehend and work on. Now, if the managers are not clear with what is the work to be done, how they should be controlling in case of any deviations, then they'll not be able to exercise controlling efficiently. So on the other hand, subordinates must also know the type of controls that they would be subjected to. Okay, the manager should know how to deal with control, and the subordinate should know what type of control they will be subjected to once the work has been done. So it's not just the top managers who should understand the controlling system, but also the junior managers should also have an idea about them. Okay, so before launching any controlling measures, before making any decisions regarding controlling, managers should first check whether their employees will be able to understand them. For example, if you don't achieve these 20 units that you're supposed to produce, then this or that may happen. Okay, some punishments may be made, or instead of punishments, maybe some you'll be given some other kind of a job. Okay, so all these things should be made clear. There should not be any kind of vagueness, ambiguity, or any kind of confusion should be there when they are giving out the orders or when they're giving out information regarding control system. Okay, and the final point we have is control should focus on workers, because obviously the people who are going to do the work are the workers. So therefore, controlling good control system also should always focus on the workers, because only when it's been done, then only when the focus is given to the workers who are going to be doing the actual work, only then will everybody in the organization be able to work effectively. Okay, so these are the 10 points which we're having pertaining to the things that are required to exist if you want to have a good control system. Okay, so moving on to the next topic, it is about the importance of control. Now, we've seen clearly what are the requirements that should be there if we want to have effective controlling. So now let's talk in detail about what should exist in case of controlling in order to have in the organization, why we should have controlling in the organization. Now, controlling is a very important function of management. It becomes indispensable, which means it cannot be left out. So without a controlling function in an organization, the different goals of the organization and the plans also cannot be executed. So the control function helps the management in various ways. In fact, it helps the management to achieve the predetermined goals. And besides that, the efficiency of the different functions is also ensured by the controlling process. And also in case of any shortcomings that are there, these are also reported by the controlling function in order to help take corrective measures. Okay, so we have listed a few points here with regards to advantages of controlling systems. Let's look at them first. First point is accomplishing organizational goals. So as we've mentioned over and over again since we've started with this unit, that when it comes to controlling, it helps or it tries to ensure that it helps to achieve the goals of the organization. So the controlling function is an accomplishment of measures that further makes progress towards the organizational goal and brings to light any deviations and indicates corrective action. Now, with the help of the controlling function, we can compare the standard with the actual, and the standards that have been set are mainly for the achievement of organizational goals, right? So if there are any deviations between actual and standard, controlling will be able to find these deviations, correct these deviations, and ensure that the working of the organization will reach to the organizational goals. So therefore, it helps in guiding the organizational goals, which can be achieved by performing the controlling function. Okay, second point is judging accuracy of standards. Again, as I said, it takes the actual, compares it with the standards, and sees how far or how correctly we have done the job. So a good controlling system will enable the management to verify whether the standards that have been set are accurate and objective. Accurate and objective, whether they are concrete, whether they are precise, and objective meaning whether they are biased or whether not favoritism is not being played in hand. Now, the efficient control system also helps in keeping careful and controlled progress check on the changes, which will help in taking the major place in the organization and also in the environment. And they'll also help to review and revise the standards in the light of such changes. Meaning that in case of controlling, it'll study the standards that have been set by the organization, and then I'll try to figure out whether these standards are effective, whether these standards can be achieved, whether these standards are accurate, or whether these standards are going to be useful to achieve the objectives of the organization or not. Okay, and in case there are any changes changes in the organization, in the environment, then they should try to review and revise these standards in the light of all these kinds of changes. That is the duty of the controlling system. Okay, point number 3 is making efficient use of resources. Now, in case of economy, in case of economical usage, always remember the one phrase we always say, optimum utilization of resources. So that is one of the importance of controlling system as well. So another important function of controlling is that in case of the controlling system, in case of the function, every activity which is performed in the organization is ensured to be performed in such a manner so as in accordance with the predetermined standards and norms, so as to ensure that the resources are used in the most effective and efficient manner also for future or further availability of resources. Okay, it tries to ensure that whatever work is being done, it is done in such a way that there is no wastage of resources. Okay, effective and efficient usage of resources to ensure that there is enough resources available for future use as well. And then point number 4 is basis for future action. Now, if you remember, we said for controlling is also forward-looking. So controlling, it helps provide a kind of a base for any preparing any steps for the future. So the continuous flow of information about the projects in case of the controlling function, because they have to keep on studying, right, whether they are performing according to standard or not. So there's a continuous flow of information about these projects, and it helps to keep long-range planning on the right track. So besides that, it also helps in taking corrective actions for the future if the performance is not up to the mark, because it is going to be studying the present and the actual and the standard. So if it's not accurate or if it's not in line with the standards, then they'll be making any changes for the future actions. So it also enables management to avoid repetition of past mistakes. And then you have point number 5, facilitates decision making. Now again, controlling is very important because remember, it studies the standards the standards set and the standards that have been achieved, compares them, and tries to find out if there are any differences. And if there are any differences, they'll try to make changes. Now, change is something that can be done only by the management. Okay, so because of that, it helps in making the decisions in the firm. Okay, so whenever there is any deviation between the standard and the actual performance, the controlling function will be helping in deciding the future course of action, and the decision about the follow-up action also will be facilitated in the controlling function itself. Okay, therefore it helps to guide decision making. And then the next point is facilitates decentralization. Now, I'm sure you know the meaning of decentralization, right? Centralization is when all authority is with one person, but decentralization is when the authority is distributed among different people, authority and responsibility. So decentralization of authority is especially necessary in case of big or larger enterprises. Now, the management, of course, cannot delegate authority without ensuring proper control systems are in place. Okay. If the controlling systems are not proper, then decentralization and delegation cannot exist in the organization. So the targets or the goals of the different departments are going to be used as a controlling technique or a controlling method. So if the work is going on satisfactorily, then the management will not be worried. Okay, the management will not be worried about decentralization or delegation, because with the help of controlling, remember we used a term which stated management by exception. They'll only concentrate on those important jobs, and the less important jobs they can delegate the work. Okay, so the management by exception will enable the top management to concentrate on policy formation and various controlling techniques that we talked about: budgeting, cost control, PERT, CPM. All of these will allow for decentralization without losing control over activities. As such, controlling is important if the organization is larger and it wants to have decentralization. And then the seventh importance of control is facilitates coordination. Now, controlling will help in the coordination of different activities in the organization by uniting them in the form of the action, okay, through unity of action. Now, every manager will obviously try to coordinate the activities of his different subordinates, okay, all the people who are working under him, in order to achieve the main goals, whether it's the goal of the organization, goal of the department, or just goal of a particular division. So similarly, the chief executives also will try to coordinate the functioning of various departments. And the control will act as checks on the performance, as well as it'll help to give proper results. Okay, so and proper results will be achieved only when activities are going to be coordinated. So what happens in case of controlling is that the managers, the mid-level managers, let's say, the superiors will try to coordinate the activities of the subordinates, and these managers will be controlled by the executives. Okay, so it follows that hierarchy. And they're saying that only when there is proper and effective controlling will this coordination between the different levels of management exist properly. Okay, and only then will proper results be achieved. And then you have point number 8, helps in improving efficiency. Now, the control system will help to improve organizational efficiency because there will be various controlling activities, or there will be various controlling devices which will act as motivators to your managers. If you're performing well, you'll be getting some kind of a bonus. Okay, if you're producing more than standard, more than what was actually set, then you'll be receiving some kind of a benefit. Okay, so this is kind of a motivator. So the performance of every person will be monitored regularly, and any deficiency will be corrected at the earliest, and any kind of good improvement on efficiency could be rewarded according to the control system. Okay, and it's only with the existence of a control system can you actually figure out whether or not an employee is performing effectively, because you'll be studying how much is standard and how much they're actually performing, and that difference will help you to determine whether it's a good employee or a bad, or a lethargic employee, and then based on that we can improve the efficiency of employees. Okay, last point we have is psychological pressure. Now, control puts some kind of a psychological pressure on different people in the organization. Okay, now everybody will know that the performance that they're doing will be regularly evaluated. That today, whatever work they're doing can be studied by the managers, and they'll be evaluating them, and they'll be giving results based on that. So every employee or everybody in the organization will try to improve upon his previous work, especially if he knows that he's been performing below standard. So the rewards and punishments will also be linked along with the performance of the employee. So therefore, the employees will always have some kind of a psychological pressure to improve upon their work, because if they feel that if they're not doing well today, they may get fired or they may have some kind of repercussions. So since performance measurement is one of the important tools of control, it ensures that every person will try to maximize his contribution. Okay, so because we know that performance measurement is a very important aspect of controlling, therefore it puts some kind of pressure upon people to work harder to maximize their contribution or to do better in their workplace. Okay, so these are the important aspects of controlling. So we're moving on to our next topic, which is scope or areas of control. What are the different categories or different aspects which are controlled by, which are covered by controlling function. So now the scope of managerial control is very wide. We can see from here itself, we have quite a few points to deal with. Okay, so it's a very wide scope. Now, a well-designed control plan will cover almost all of your management activities. In fact, according to Holden, Fish, and Smith, we have these main areas of control. Okay, so these are the main areas of control according to Holden, Fish, and Smith. Now, the scope of control is a primary goal-oriented task of a management in an organization. It is in fact a process of comparing actual performance with the set standards of the company to ensure that the activities are carried out according to the plans, and if not, corrective actions will be taken. So the scope of control is largely associated with power, and it has the power to influence people, decisions, or processes as well. So in any business setting, the control is commonly used as a way of ensuring that the organization's processes or the organization's goals are to achieve the objectives. Okay, so the main scopes of the controlling function are, firstly, let's talk about control over the organization. First scope is controlling over the organization. Now, controlling over the organization can be accomplished through the development of your organizational charts and your organizational manuals. So the organizational manual will try to create or try to solve organizational problems, and it'll also help to control any kinds of conflicts also pertaining to long distance organizations. Okay, so with the help of the organization manual, we can have you can open branches far away also, so long distance organization, and it'll also help to enable rationalization of organization structure, and it'll also help to create proper design for the organization and different departments. Okay, it'll help to adopt all these different structures, and then it'll help to organize the structure, the organization structure as well, and it'll help to ensure what type of organization you become also in the future, larger organization, small organization, and also when it comes to production also, whether you want to diversify, whether you want to branch out. Okay, all of this is controlled, or it's influenced by the controlling function. And then you have control over methods. Now, control of methods is accomplished by periodically analyzing the activities of each department. So the tasks that have been performed, the method in which the tasks have been performed, the time that has been adopted by each employee to perform the task, all of these are going to be studied, and they'll be studied with an approach or with the idea of eliminating any kind of non-essential movements, any kind of non-essential works, or any kind of non-essential methods that have been already adopted in the firm. Okay, so it covers also the area of methods that are being followed in the organization. Okay, point number 3, or area of control number 3, is cost control. Cost control means if there are any excess costs, okay, they'll be able to cover for those costs, or they'll be able to cancel out those costs. So cost account analysis is performed by a cost accountant. So in case of controlling, we should have also somebody known as a cost accountant. Now, cost accounting in itself is a separate paper which you'll be studying in case of your 5th semester. Okay, so in this you'll be able to understand how controlling works more effectively. Okay, so as we said, cost account analysis is going to be performed by your cost accounting. So the cost accountant will be setting standards for the different resources that are being used, your men, material, money, okay, and also in case of any overheads, and it'll compare these standards with the actual cost data, and based on that, they'll be making the proper cost control. Okay, if the budgeted is more or lesser than the actual, okay, they'll be trying to figure out what are the deviations, what are the differences, and they'll be preparing cost control systems by creating maybe budgetary control systems. Okay, and then you have point number 4, control over research and development. Now, when it comes to research and development, these activities are highly technical in nature, and besides that, they're also very expensive. Okay, as a result of that, we cannot have any kind of direct control over your research and development activities. Therefore, we should have some kind of an indirect control over them by improving the ability and judgment of research staff through training programs and other tools. Okay, we cannot control research and development directly, but we can control them indirectly by helping or guiding the staff who are working in your research and development activities, by introducing them through training programs or by improving their tools and the whatever they're using in the organization for research and development. So control is also exercised by having a research in businesses also. And then you have point number 5, control over personnel. Another area which is covered by controlling is your personnel, which are your human resources. Now, the statement that management is getting the people working through is adequately underlines the importance of personnel control. Okay, management is the art of getting people to do the work for you, right? That is one of the definitions that we grew up with. So, it adequately underlines the importance of personnel control. All the employees that we're having in the organization will definitely be working at different levels. So these people who are working at different levels should perform their prescribed duties well and direct their efforts in controlling their behavior. Okay, they should be performing their own duties properly and ensuring that they are able to control the efforts of their behavior as well. So individual director or the personnel manager will prepare a control plan to control the specified individuals or their the personnel under them. And then we have point number 6, control over policies. So the success of any business organizations depends upon a large extent on how far the policies are implemented. So you can have different kinds of policies, right? Different types of structures, different kinds of goals. So therefore, the need to control policies becomes evident because it affects your growth or it affects the success of the business. Therefore, we need to control it properly. So in any enterprise, policies are going to be regulated through policy manuals. This is how the controlling is being done, by policy manuals. And then you have point number 7, control over wages and salary. Again, wages and salary should be controlled by the different methods. So you have methods like job evaluation and salary analysis. Now, this particular work, control over wages and salary, can be done either by the personnel department, human resources department, or the industrial engineering department, depends upon the organization. So the salary and pay committee is often formed to assist these departments in the task of controlling wages as well as the salaries of the individuals. And then you have control over external relations, any relationship other than within the organization. So you have any debtors, creditors, okay, and then your third parties, all of these are the outside or external relations. So the public relations department is the department that is responsible. Okay, the public relations department will be controlling any kind of external relations for the enterprise. So it may create different kinds of steps, rules, guidelines, measures for other operating departments that will be useful in improving external relationships. And then we have point number 9, control over capital expenditure. So capital expenditure is for your assets, which are quite large in nature, right? Which do not exactly earn you, which are for long term. Okay, so control over capital expenditure is used through the system of evaluation of the projects, ranking of the projects, and then allocating appropriate capital for different projects within the organization. So what it means is that when we're deciding upon where to invest the capital, it should be done through a system of evaluating the projects, checking. the projects, okay, studying the projects, and then identifying which project we should invest in, okay, depending upon the second part, which is ranking of the projects. This project is very good, should be rank 1. This project is okay, rank number 2. This project is bad, rank number 3, something like that, okay. And also allocating appropriate capital for the projects within the organization. So for this, we should have a some kind of a capital budget which should be prepared for the entire firm. So the capital budget committee is the committee or is the party which will be preparing this capital budget. So they will review the different projects and the different proposals, and they will suggest a project which is going to be beneficial to the firm, which will have appropriate amounts of risk, appropriate amounts of returns. So a project analysis should be done, and then we should study the cost of the capital. We should go through the full capital budgeting technique, how much should be invested, in what project it should be invested, okay. We should even carry out a break-even analysis, okay, an ABC analysis should be done, okay? And all of these types of analysis should be carried out before deciding upon where to invest or which capital expenditure to take up. And then the last one is overall control. So besides these areas, it has a full control over everything else. So this is mostly affected through budgetary control. So you'll be having, in case of budgetary control, you'll be having different kinds of budgets, right? Master budget, sales budget, purchase budget. Okay, so the master budget is one which is designed for effective or overall control of the firm, and all departments will be included in the master budget. So for effective control through the master budget, active support of the top management is going to be required. So when it comes to overall control, this is mostly done through the master plan. And if you want to achieve proper or effective control of the master plan, the top management should also be notified, because their support is going to be required. Okay, so these are the 10 areas over which control has a grasp, or over which controlling will be required. Okay, so we'll stop here for this session.